podcast. My name's Andy Taylor, and I'm joined by Isaac Alcorn, usual guest on this podcast for BUCS, the football talk. No Stuart Andrew with us this week. We couldn't quite get our schedules aligned to get all three of us in this week. A busy week for all of us. But nonetheless, we still wanted to bring you our thoughts on the results from week 3 that happened this weekend, and then looking forward to week 4 this weekend as well. So Isaac, we had a mad weekend, didn't we? It was lots going on, but plenty to talk about nonetheless, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just some of the results that came in this weekend were a bit surprising and shocking, really.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
but plenty to talk about nonetheless.
Exactly.
But let's get straight into it though, because we've got some juicy results to talk about, and this is where my driving of the ship goes completely wrong because I don't have Stuart here with me. But the results from this week, from week 3 of the Premier Tier, quite a lot to talk about, really, wasn't there? Because I think we had the Durham Saints Nottingham Gold as our game of the week. Certainly, I know you did, and certainly something that was always going to stand out. And Nottingham Gold were obviously coming off this buzzing result that they had the week before from UWE Bullets, but was this going to be a letdown game? Travelling up to Durham's, never an easy trip, but they ended up winning by 6 points. PAT short of a touchdown. So probably a bit surprising, but maybe not to some. What are your thoughts on that game in particular?
Yeah, you could say it's a bit surprising. Durham obviously beating them last season. Nottingham coming off of one long journey and doing another one straight away. But on the flip side of that, their 2 biggest journeys are out of the way for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. It's now either home games or maybe 2 hours to Leeds, an hour or so to Loughborough. It's not huge anymore. I didn't get to watch this game live, but looking online, it looks like it were a great game. It's another close one for Nottingham Gold. They like these close games recently. So no, I think games like this, going further down the stretch, is going to help them quite a lot to have that mental toughness of not scoring on loads of points, but just maintaining what they've got, knowing that it works and trusting it.
And does this make Nottingham Gold the team to beat?
Well, they're 2-0 right now, so everyone else is looking at them. So yeah, really, it does. You have got another unbeaten team in there in Loughborough who we didn't see this week. So it's Nottingham Gold and Loughborough who right now are the team that the rest of the Prem Tier National are looking at.
And I suppose it depends on what we make of UWE as well, and we'll get onto that. Should we call it a game because it happened in the field? But we'll get onto that in a second. But I suppose it depends on how much we look into that first game against Gold, right? That will have surprised everyone. They let us know in our DMs and a number of comments on socials about how they were ready to bounce back, and of course we'll talk about that in a second that they did. But I suppose it depends on what we make of that first game in the long run when it comes to looking at who comes out on top at the end, right?
Yeah, no doubt that UWE will bounce back when they have to travel to Nottingham. But no, I think that first game last week showed everyone that Nottingham Gold last season didn't make it to the final for the first time in 3 seasons, whereas this year they're back and they're ready, and they've only got one goal in mind, and that's to win it all.
Yeah, and so let's move on to that game. I think we both called it last week that we did not want to be Leeds Beckett this week. They were coming off a tough loss. Was that to who was that to in the first week? Was that Loughborough? And then they had a wounded animal coming to visit in UWE, and just a meagre 104 points scored against them and 0 points. So don't particularly want to focus on the Leeds Beckett side of it just now, but that's something UWE Bullets probably felt like they wanted to come out and do, and it probably was a target for them in that game, right?
Yeah, I don't know if 104 was the target, but they've certainly hit it. The 3rd time ever in BUCS that 100 points or over has been scored, and it's happened twice now for the UWE Bullets against Leeds Beckett this week and UEA a couple seasons ago. So I think they've flexed the muscles enough to basically tell the rest of the Prem that last week was just an off week. Now we're back. We're going to be firing on all cylinders, and whoever wants to play against us next, good luck to you.
Yeah, and I think Stuart made a comment last week about how their starting quarterback went down in the Nottingham game. So it's starting to paint a picture that he's a key player for them, and obviously a starting quarterback that's not a hot take at all, but certainly in particular for this offense, it might be something that is in particular importance for them going forward if they want to currently dethrone, I suppose, Nottingham at the top of this table as well, right?
Yeah, you saw it last week 2 weeks ago now, when they played Nottingham. That when they came out of the game, they were a different side. They weren't the same. Whereas you've seen that when he's in the team, they scored 20 points against Nottingham and 104 points. So he's got 124 points in 2 games, which by any QB I think could take that.
Yeah, and let's touch on that Leeds Beckett angle of it, albeit not too deep, because we don't want to kick people down while they're down. But this is a stark change, isn't it, so far from years gone by to this season. So this is a wounded program, which we saw reports in the off season of what may or may not have happened, but it's obviously had an impact, and hopefully not a lasting one. But for this season, it seems to have affected them dramatically. What's you've obviously been involved in that program personally. What's your thoughts on what's happening there in what's quite a nostalgic program in previous years, right?
Yeah, so I were involved in the 2019 season when they won the national championship, being on the ball boy and the chain crew and that sort of stuff, and helping with being like an assistant, I guess. It's a completely different side from that. A lot of coach turnover. I think this is their 4th head coach since that national championship win. We after Dale left and Jason, and obviously we had last season, and now a new head coach. New head coaches are always gonna struggle. You come into a new environment, a new team. A lot of the guys you don't know, you're gonna have to recruit yourself. But yeah, it seems like a completely different side to what it was when they won the national championship only 5 years ago now. So yeah, it might be a long, tough season for CAF. It could be used as a rebuilding one, but hopefully they'll bounce back and be even better than that season when they won it all.
Yeah, and it's difficult to rebuild in such a high standard division as well, when you are coming up against teams like Nottingham Gold, who they've got this week, by the way, UE Bullets, and obviously Loughborough previously, and they've still got Durham to come up against as well. You see that in the adult ball, right? See what's happened. I know the Nighthawks very well, how they've done in Prem in the last couple of years, and how difficult it is to build a program against such strong sides. So you can only hope that they've got a strong enough culture there to keep the program together, and rather seeing it plummet like a rock, and they can keep it together and maybe hold it for next year as well, because it feels like we're at that stage now, aren't we? When you've got 2 disappointing results, they've scored 6 points in 2 games and they've conceded 134, albeit 104 of them were last weekend. So, but I suppose they can still improve. They've got a good head coach there, haven't they? They could still show improvements this year, but it might be a difficult one.
Well, yeah, the only way is up really for them. They're at the bottom now. They can only get better. So let's see what happens this week against the Gold, and see if they have a habit of, when Nottingham go to Leeds Beckett, not Beckett's win. When Beckett's go to Nottingham win. So it's, I think last season it flipped and that changed. But let's see what happens this year.
Yeah, sure. And then having a little look at the other Prem games as well, we obviously had a really close one in Warwick, there between Warwick Wolves and Nottingham Trent. And then looking towards the south, we had Cardiff Cobras and SGS Pride. So Cardiff Cobras lost to SGS Pride 2011, and then Portsmouth came out and beat Exeter 26-14. I think, out of them, which stands out to you, and then we'll have a little look at some of the others.
Yeah, it's the Cardiff SGS Pride one.
Right.
I think, again, Pride probably would have been the ones who everyone thought, oh yeah, they're going to win. They'll probably win this division. They train multiple times a week. They're there together all the time. It's almost comparing it to what like an American program would be with how the togetherness is there. Cardiff are giving them a good game. And Cardiff this year looking strong. Already beating Birmingham and taking a game really to SGS Pride. So I think that Cardiff do look quite strong this year, and I don't think they'll be disheartened by that result because in previous seasons it could have been a lot worse for them.
And was it Exeter that came up this year it's their introduction to the Prem this year, is it? So that was their first game in the Prem against Portsmouth. So things for them to take from that, I suppose, and learn from that, knowing some of the coaching staff there.
Yeah, the bounce from Tier 1 to the Prem is big. It's a huge jump. You see often that the teams that come up to the Prem often are the ones that go back down. So, I think scoring 14 points on your league debut is nothing to be ashamed of, really. And so hopefully something they can build on for next year. The rest of the season. For the rest of the season, absolutely. And then I suppose the team that benefited the most from the Warwick game was probably the Leeds Gryphons, because they have a head-to-head, don't they, between one of these two teams. I can't remember which one it was, but they're sitting there nicely with a cushion now at the top of that division going into this week anyway. Yeah, and again, Warwick showed how determined they are to just not go down without a fight. A really close game. I don't think there was a score in the second half. So it could be, it could be that division could really be who's got the better defense this year, or who's got all the defenses seem really good so far. You don't see a lot of points being scored unless you play against Leeds. So it could be I think Nottingham Trent last week, who the week before scored 20 plus points. So Warwick have done well to bounce back from a defeat against. Who did they play the first week? I can't remember, but I know they lost. I think it might have been Leeds.
Might have been. Yeah, I think you're right.
A defeat against Leeds where they've conceded 40 plus points, to only conceded 6 against Nottingham Trent. It shows that signs that they are improving, and learning on the job, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just trying to confirm what that score was.
I think it was
Leeds. In week
40 to 20 something.
40 to 28. Yeah, against Leeds. Yeah, you were right. Interesting action there in the Premiership. So we've got plenty more to talk about. So let's move on to Tier 1 then, and have a little look there. So if you are watching on our YouTube, you will see the nice graphics that we have displaying the scores. So we'll try and keep our listeners engaged as well by telling you the scores as we go along. But a mixed bag, really. There were some blowouts, and then there was some games where there was just no points scored next at all, really, wasn't there? But what stands out, because there's obviously quite a lot of games here, and we shouldn't go through all of them one by one. But which stand out to you here in the Tier 1 results from last week?
Northumbria against Manchester.
Right.
On the road, Northumbria have scored 52 points. Really carrying on the dominance from last season. We saw them do it to pretty much every tier. There was Division 2 side then. They pretty much did it to all of them. And they just carried it straight on into the Tier 1. It shows that, again, they're looking to go just one promotion after another, pretty much like Liverpool have done. So, yeah, it's going to be I think that game shows that Northumbria are ready and are quite strong, and they want to win it all, basically, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talked last week, about where there's probably going to be a bit of divide in the Scottish division, didn't we? And we didn't quite see that in the end because we've now got 4 teams on 2 points, haven't we? So probably we might see a split at maybe four teams, but not necessarily in the middle as we thought, right? Which was interesting, but
so you got Stirling who beat Edinburgh 10-8. You know, Stirling are ex-national champions. They want to be back competing for that. So getting a good first day win against Edinburgh, who are coming off a victory themselves against Glasgow, only, you know, it shows that how strong Stirling can be this year. And then Heriot Watt beating Aberdeen as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think last season Heriot Watt beat Aberdeen as well. So again, it's just showing that what they took from last season's bringing into this one, and hopefully it can push them on the rest of the season.
Yeah. And then we had a beautiful looking set of scores in the Southwest as well, with over 2 games, 13 points being scored. It's just something of beauty, isn't it? With Bristol beating Bath Killer Bees by 7 points to 0, and Southampton beating Swansea by 6 points to 0. It's just defensive delight, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If you look, if you're a defensive coordinator out there, you just need to try and get get the highlights of that game and see how it's been played. But yeah, no, I think we've seen that a lot this season. I know that further down in the south there's 40+ points being scored per game, but a lot of games, especially in the Prem as well, a lot of like close games and defensive heavy games, which you would really expect. It's easier to teach defense than it is teaching offense. You know, it's just hit people.
Yeah,
there you are. So no, I think them results are what I would expect at this start of the year. You know, hopefully going forward we'll see a lot more high scoring games and a bit more, you know, offensive can start clicking and working together a bit more.
Yeah. And as you say, we've got nearly 100 points scored in the southern division there with Brunel and Hertfordshire clearly making themselves heard in that division as well. And we'll get on to the fixtures this week because it sets up a tasty fixture this week as well, doesn't it? Those ones. So interesting to see how that shapes out because it's still early on. We've got Brighton and Reading who have both played 2 now. Unfortunately, Reading have only scored 2 points across that time, so they've got some work to do on offense. But it looks like they came up against a high-powered offense there in Brunel for that first opening game, and like I say, tease what's going on this week as well in that division. Yeah, should we move on to Tier 2 then and have a little look at what went on there? So we've got, again, a lot of planned fixtures, but not all of them happened. Unfortunately, we had UE2 and Aberystwyth that was called off in the week. Who knows why? But we've heard some thoughts around the community, haven't we? But who knows whether that's true or not?
Exactly.
But it didn't happen, nonetheless.
No.
And then we had the funky sort of game called in the City St George's game, didn't we, against C4, Canterbury Chargers? And that was called, we've been told by people involved in the game that was to do with numbers after some injuries. And so that has since been awarded to City St George, hasn't it? And the win. Not as a home walkover, if you could call it that. But apparently it was 26-6 at the time in which it was called, to them anyway. So ignoring them, how do we have a look at, how do we address the other games that were happening in Tier 2?
Yeah, first I'm just glad I don't have to say that place in Wales this week. I'm glad about that. I'm not even going to try and attempt it.
And it's not a fixture this week, so you don't have to worry.
Exactly. I get a week off. That's brilliant. So in the Northwest, Lancaster beating Kiel. You know, I think a lot of people have predicted that Lancaster will win that, then will win the Northwest. But Staffordshire had a great game against Edge Hill, scoring 27 points against them. You know, which you could have probably seen that Edge Hill might have been the number 2 team in that one, but Staffordshire are there to prove them wrong. I think that's going to be an interesting one, being the smallest division in all the
In
tiers.
BUCS, yeah.
Exactly, in BUCS couple. So no, I think that's going to be a interesting one. I think again Sheffield beating Sunderland, long trip up to Newcastle. That's it done for the season. Of us, most of their travels now will be an hour and a half max, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going up there and winning the way they did is a good start for their season. So yeah, it's gonna Div 2 Tier 2 is shaping up to be. It looks like an entertaining if you look at some of the scores. Every game has. I think both teams have scored in all but 2 games there.
Yeah,
So
and Plymouth now
Kiel.
sit handily at the top, don't they, in the southwest? They're now handily at the top, having beaten Bath Spa 45-22, and obviously Aberystwyth have got that game to get back, and they're just right behind them. Otherwise, but interesting to see how they're sitting atop of that division with everybody else on 0 points.
And I think when we did the pre-season chat that we had, I think with all the talk was of UA and the Welsh team. But I think Plymouth will come out and surprise a few people, which is is only good for the sport really. So yeah, I think it's looking like that one's going to be an entertaining one. I think it's going to go down to the last few games to see who wins that division.
Yeah, we'll have a couple of fixtures this weekend, which might give us a bit of an idea of where we're going down with the southern and the southeastern divisions as well, because we've got a couple of games there. Southwest have the week off this week. So yeah, no, interesting to see how that's shaping up. You can obviously head over to our socials to see these if you're not watching us on YouTube, and also if you head to our website, Stuart set up a game centre with all the fixtures and results, and he's also got the standings updated there as well, where we try and keep you informed of where we're all at. Although we appreciate that you can get it from other sources, why not go to our website and have a little look as well and read some articles, certainly Isaac's previews while you're there, which go up every week. And Isaac, you'll be previewing week 4 as well for us, and let's start talking about week 4 and what to expect this week. And we would normally ask for games of the week from you when there's more than one of us. So with Stuart not joining us, let's not worry about that. Let's just kind of pick out ones that are tasty for us. But when we look at the Premier League, we've Premier tier, we've got obviously them. A number of games. We've got 6 games in the Prem this weekend, which is glorious. Which stand out to you within this tier in particular?
Yeah, so in the National League, Durham against Loughborough. Loughborough sitting at 1-0. Durham having that last week against the Gold. Durham will need to bounce back against Loughborough, but I don't think Loughborough will just walk over and hand it to them. They've got some great coaches down there. You see the links now that they've got with the NFL Academy, which is only going to help them in the long run. So I think, Loughborough are going to want to travel up there and really give it to Durham. I think it's, again, awful place to travel to, especially if you're in that Midlands area. But no, I think it's going to be that one's going to be in the national anyway. Is going to be the game of the week. You got Gold against Beckett's that, in the past in the old Prem North would have been game of the week. Those are 2 top teams, but this season with as we talked about with Beckett's misfortune, you can, it'd be good to see if they can bounce back against Gold. You see that Gold have got a strong defense and not a too high scoring offense, but one that can certainly turn up when they need to.
It would be interesting because in this National League in particular, and obviously with how results have gone so far, it'll be interesting to see how these come out, because it'll give us an idea of how we're going to start stacking this division in terms of who's likely to be at the bottom and where that split's going to happen. Because obviously if Loughborough end up going to Durham and coming away with a win, then we can start looking to see where the split in that division comes from. And likewise, if Nottingham Gold come away with a similar result that UWE came away with, then we then have comparisons, don't we, between UWE against Leeds and Nottingham as well. So yeah, it'd been interesting to review these results next week and see where we are. I wonder whether it'll just be a little bit more murky in the middle of that division rather than it being a split between the two after this week. But having a look into the other Prem divisions then, Isaac, what stands out to you?
I like the look of the Leeds Liverpool game.
Yeah.
Leeds have been an entertaining team so far, scoring 40 plus points in each of the games. So again, it's going to be, you'd expect it to be a high scoring one, but Liverpool in that first game, didn't. They
8-0,
lost
weren't
to
they?
Newcastle 8-0.
Yeah.
They only conceded what, 6 points on defense. So again, like we said before, it's a strong defensive league. You saw it with a Warwick game last week, 7-6. It's going to be a division that I think is going to be built on defense, unless you lead and you can score 40 points on any team you wish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then also the Lions against the Cobras, which has been moved from Explosion to Sunday. A game that we've already seen happen this season. Which it doesn't happen normally this early in the season, which is good to see. Cardiff getting a win that time, but again, another close game. I think they finished 28-21, something like that in the first week. So yeah, I think
27-20. Yeah.
27-20. Yeah, so 1 point off.
Yeah.
But no, I think again the Cobras will want to show what they did against SGS Pride last week. Keeping it close, and want to do it again against Birmingham.
Yeah, and another test Brexiter, as we mentioned previously about that being their first games, if you like, or the first taste of it, and they've obviously got to host SGS coming to town. So it'll be interesting to get in to see how they're stacking up in this division as well after this weekend. Real. Well, let's move on to Tier 1. Select the right graphic, Andy. So loads of games in Tier 1. Couldn't keep up. So there's tons of games coming up. So got a full house up in the Scottish, and then we've got plenty of other games across all divisions. So again, let's not go into them all because we'll bore everyone. But certainly, I'm interested to see what happens at MMU and UClan. I don't know about you. I don't know what stands out to you during this list, but MMU UClan, I always enjoy seeing what comes out of that game. Certainly in the northern part of this tier, but let me give us a shout on what you think.
Yeah, so MMU against UClan is going to be an interesting one for sure. UClan came out with the blocks against Manchester, and with like Northumbria did last week, and said, "Yep, we're here, we're ready. We were in Div 2 last year, but we can give it to the Tier 1 boys this year." I think that division in the whole this week looks like an interesting one, with LJMU going against Manchester as well. Two teams that aren't known for scoring this year, but who can more than a strong enough defense on the day. So LJMU only losing to a pick six last game. You know what I mean? It shows that they're not going to be ones that can just be pushed over. And then you got Nottingham Green against Sheffield Hallam in the Midlands one, which is going to be an interesting one. One that Hallam lost last week for the first time this season. The Greens, again, like the Golds, they've got 3 games back to back to back. They'll be carrying knocks. They'll have injuries. Sheffield will see it as, we could have a result here. They've got knocks. We'll be healthy. But Nottingham Green, they're not like that. We know that both Nottingham teams are coached well, so it could be a good game there. And I think that one will be being streamed as well, so it'll be an interesting watch.
I love to know how these coaches get students out of bed and towards a pitch at 8 a.m. to get ready for a 10 a.m. kickoff. I just don't know how
exactly. You got to think. Look, Sheffield Hallam will be setting off at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
How they do that after a Saturday night, I don't know, but it is impressive. I think that alone's the most impressive thing.
Yeah, and with the games that are up in Scotland as well, we'll kind of see how that division's shaping up, won't we? Because we've obviously got, his history programs going up against each other in Edinburgh, Napier, and Stirling, and then we talked about that middle of the pack. Well, we've got Heriot Watt versus Edinburgh, who are the two in the middle. So we might see that separation after all, depending on how it goes. But the one that stands out to me in the south, we teased it before, is the Brunel Hertfordshire. So it could just be one game. We've only got one data point to look at of both, but they both scored over 40 points and they both conceded 0. So something's got to give this week again, when they face each other, right?
Yeah, or it could just score 0 and it'd be like a 0-0 bar.
Yeah.
Well, no,
it'd be a really close defensive game.
Exactly. It could be either or. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to grasp this time of year to see, is it the offensive who have been playing with each other for a couple of years and they've just picked it up straight away, or is it that the defense is that good that it's giving the ball back to the offense all the time? It's going to be certainly an interesting one. Hearts were in the national championship 5 years ago. Again, so we want to be fighting to get back into that Prem tier and going back into the Prem South. And Brunel will be like, oh well, if they can, we can as well. So I think that one's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be an interesting one for sure.
I noted that Brunel have got it looks like they've got a number of Blitz players in their program as well. I saw a couple of Blitz helmets on their social media. It might have just been one, so apologies if it is, but I'm sure I saw a couple. And it's interesting that these ties are, that's where they benefit from, isn't it? These programs where they bring in great youth academy players as well.
Yeah, we spoke about it last week with UClan. They bring in a lot of Charlie Buccaneers, who it's pretty much flag, and then under 16s, under 19s. It's, if you can get a team that's playing together for a while and playing to each other when they're growing up, it's only going to make a university team stronger. So yeah, I think, having ties with, there's a lot of teams in London. If you can get ties with a couple of them, it's only going to help your university team grow.
Yeah, and we see Oxford for the first time this season as well this week, don't we? And do you have any insight into what to expect from them? When they go up against Reading, who have played 2, lost 2, scored very little and conceded quite a bit. I don't know whether that reflects on just who they've played or whether it's whether they're in for a tough year this year. But Oxford, do you have any insight into them?
Not too much. I saw that I had a friendly with the NFL Academy.
Okay.
They like Loughborough have done, and we saw what happened in Loughborough in their week 1 fixture. So it could be the exact same here. They could be getting the help from the great coaches at the academy, and hopefully it'll set them up for what could be a good year for Oxford. So yeah. I think I won't say it's an easy start for them, but it's a favourable start. Going against a team that are 0-2. And they'll be down, they'll be hurting, but they will want to bounce back. But hopefully, Oxford will be fresh. They'll be coming to the side new. There could be a few teething problems, but hopefully not too many.
At home at 11:30 in the morning's all right as well, isn't it? That's
exactly. If you're starting early at home, you're fine.
Yeah, 100%. And it would be remiss for us not to mention Southeastern, because we do see King's College for the first time this year as well, and it'll be interesting to see whether Cairns can put some distance between them and the rest of the division, because they've obviously beaten already UEA, who were right behind them in the division, and they travelled to Essex, who were 0-2, and again have similar sort of problems to Reading, as we've just mentioned, with not being able to score too much and conceding quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that starts. We could probably see a top team at the end of this game, and a muddy middle, if you like, if KCL and UCL ends up going in similar fashion in previous years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this week for a lot of divisions we're going to start seeing that divide. Who's at the top, who's at the bottom. So yeah, it's going to be a deciding week for a lot of teams this year.
Yeah, totally. So then moving on to Tier 2, last but no means least, for the fixtures. We don't have any Southwestern games this week, as we mentioned. So Lancaster Edge Hill is always a tasty fixture, but we probably expected a little bit more out of Edge Hill last week. That might be underplaying what Staffs are able to do. We won't know that yet. But they've obviously swapping teams, and we've got Lancaster versus Edge Hill, Kiel versus Staffs. So be interesting to see what goes on there. But you picked out. You reckon you might be at the York St John game. Yeah. What's your thoughts there?
A lot of YSJ players. They have started playing for the Yorkshire Rams. They've gone a lot more into the Senior Bowl. They're going up against Sheffield. They've got a great head coach there who's been I don't know if he still is, but he was a defensive coordinator at the Sheffield Giants under 19s program. Which is a great program to come from. So yeah, I think Sheffield coming off of that long trip to Sunderland, then got to travel again. It's going to be tough for them, but I know they've got a team of people who've been playing for years in all over the sport, either coming through the Giants or just from anywhere in Britain really. I think they lost quite a few of their big players in the last season. I think they've replaced them with people who are just as good. I think last year is going to be an interesting one for them. I know they heavily recruited from last season. They're not playing, but coaching against them last season. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. See how YSJ can come into the league with it being their first game as well.
And we might be overseeing some good games, so apologies, but we wanted to pick out Derby in particular because we see them for the first time this season, don't we? So we see Derby Braves take on ARU. Did all right last year, so we'd probably be expecting something similar this year, right?
Yeah, made it to the Northern Final last year against Northumbria. So yeah, it's went further than what the Greens did, who are now in Tier 1. So it's going to be I think last year they got unfortunate with having a strong division with Lincoln, Green, and themselves in. But they're going to have to go against a good team every other week. I think this year we've only having the two favourites of themselves and Lincoln. It helps them out a little bit more. So I think this week we're going to see if they can carry on what they did from last season, or if it would just and hopefully getting back up the league. Because I remember Derby being in the Prem for years when I started getting into BUCS. So yeah, hopefully they'll start climbing back up the tiers.
Yeah, and when we go into the south, it's a similar sort of picture to Tier 1 because there's been quite a lot going on, but not a lot of data points to go by because obviously we've had some postponed games and some call games in those divisions. But we do see Oxford Brookes and Royal Holloway for the first time playing each other. Pretty difficult to pick out what's going on there. But do any of those games stick out to you from the southern or the southeastern games?
I like the looks of the Brookes RHU one. I think it's going to be a game that if one team can just work better together. Both these teams have been fortunate that they've had a lot more time than a lot of the other teams to get prepared. The season started 4 weeks ago now, and I think people started moving in late September. So Brookes and Royal Holloway have both had that opportunity of, we can work together for longer. We've got more time than everybody else. Right. Let's, we can slow it down a little bit. We can introduce contact a little bit easier to some people rather than a lot of other universities going like, right, game day is in 6 weeks. We need to start going now. So I think that one's going to be a good game because it's also in that time you get to bond a lot quicker. Not a lot quicker, sorry, a lot more smoothly, I guess.
Yeah.
In a way, just because you get more time to be your teammates and everything like that, rather than going into battle straight away. So no, I think that game's going to be a good one.
We've heard that from a number of people around the BUCS League about how there's been less time to prepare this year, hasn't there? With the game, with certainly we're already week 4 and we've only just hit November, which is different to others, isn't it? So we've had that overlap. Obviously, we've got the under-19s regional league in between that, so some people might have benefited from that league as well. But I take your point that 4 weeks in, you've had 4 weeks extra training, I suppose, haven't you? So, and then we've obviously got Kingston, who are sitting at the top. Yep. Because they didn't concede any points in their first game, and against Quimble, Queen Mary's, who are right behind them on points. So, but I'm interested to know what are City St George's, because obviously they were winning at the weekend, and then that got called. So is it something that they are a dominant force in that division, or not so much? And we see Imperial for the first time this year as well. 10:30 kickoff though again, so don't envy them.
Yeah, I don't know if this is because of the double headers that are going to take place, so it's easy to get more refs to more games or what, but a lot of these early kickoffs this year I think are going to be a killer to some teams, especially if you're having to travel away. But no, I think City St George will want to just, they'll back it up. They'll want to just be like, yeah, last week we were unfortunate that we couldn't finish the game, but we'll start in the exact same way as what we did last time. But that runs the risk of when your opponents have got a low squad numbers. It's tough sometimes, and decisions like that do need to be made. But yeah, the Kingston Quimble game, top of the table clash already. I think it's going to be a great game, to be honest. First time that the teams meet this season, and it's I think it'll be one that both teams will desperately want to win, because again, that division we can then start to see clearly. Okay, these guys are at the top. This team's struggling, sort of thing, and in the middle, and it's just going to be this week's going to decide a lot of that for a lot of different divisions.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant, and we do know of a number of streams that are going to happen over the weekend, don't we? But we don't know all of them at the moment. Yeah. So once we have found out which ones are getting streamed, we'll be definitely the ones to share it with you. We probably presume that Durham will. We think Nottingham will, because they've got that double header at home. But if we do see any others, we'll definitely let you know over our socials, and you can get watching them. And then we'll be back next week, hopefully with a Stuart to be able to
go on. Under 19s.
Oh yes,
against the South at Nottingham.
Nottingham, isn't it? Yeah. So Team Midlands, Mighty Oaks. Yeah. That's right. The last game of the under 19s. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me that that's happening this weekend. I'm supposed to be commentating on it, so we'll see if that comes off. I've been invited down there, so we'll see if that comes off, and have a little bit of fun watching that game, because I saw quite a bit of the North Midlands game and thought that was tasty and a lot of fun to take in. So hopefully we can finish off with a bang with Team South, who took it to SGS, and obviously Team Midlands who want to finish off well, because we know a lot of those coaches in Grant and Jason and alike they'll want to finish off strong as well. But no, it'll be interesting to see how that finishes, and then we'll be able to look back on how the under 19s regional league has fared this season for the first time. Did you get much look at any of the other games, the Team North game that happened a couple of weeks ago?
No, unfortunately, I didn't. But I can only imagine that positive stuff's coming out of this division. I think having people start 11v11 younger it's going to be a good thing for GB. Under 17s and 19s, it's going to be a great thing for the uni teams as well. Mm-hmm. To have these lads come in when they're 18 and they can all of a sudden just slot straight into a squad of 11v11 and know what their job is. It's only going to be a good thing for leagues and and the national team across BAFA.
Imagine being 16 now, knowing that you're going to get this year, and then you're going to be 2 years more of this regional league at under 11s before you get to, if you go to BUCS for university or into the adult league at 18. I think a lot of us would have thrived under that if it was available to us. So the curtain comes down on that this weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think it also helps a lot of the uni coaches. You see a lot of head coach from the Prem national sides helping out with that. SGS Pride got their own team. They'll be looking at other players thinking, these guys look good. We can, in a couple of years, we can have a chat with them. Or, it gives people that great coaching. It allows coaching that I think a lot of people, when they're, I'd love to be coached by someone like Coach Jason Scott if I had the opportunity, because but yeah, no, I think it helps a lot of people. And I think even if you don't win the games, you still can take a lot out of it just from the coaching you get. It's just like going to like a GB camp, for example, as a 16-year-olds, you might not get in. However, you're going to get some great coaching on the way. So, yeah.
And there'll be a bunch of coaches who have never coached 11v11 before as well, because it's not been available to them at youth. And so I can't imagine how beneficial that's been for them who have only tasted 9v9 or 7v7, depending on where they've been at.
Exactly. Seems like just a great idea for everybody involved, to be honest.
Yeah.
So hopefully
totally.
it'll continue to next year.
Yeah, I can't see why not, unless it's not sustainable. That's the only thing I can think of, but I can't imagine it's going anywhere. The conversation I had with Sam Stoddart was that it wasn't. So if he's got anything to do with it, I'm sure it won't. But it's interesting. So we've got next week. We'll be back. We'll be back looking at this week and going into week 5. It's coming in quickly, and also I believe. Aaron and Vic will be back with their WFFL talk coming into the weekend. There's been obviously some interesting news in the Baffa Flag community with their management structure and so on. So I'm sure they've got plenty to talk about with that. But we'll keep you apprised of when we're back to talk about those things, as well as the WFFL game days coming up. But for now, thank you, Isaac, for your input and looking back and forward into this week. And thank you very much again for our viewers or our listeners for tuning in again. And we're back next week with some week 5 action. I can't believe it's week 5 already, but I suppose it is mid-November. But anyway, thank you very much for now, and we'll catch you next time.